Hello and welcome to TaleTalk English. Today's story is emotional, inspiring, and full of hope, courage, and unexpected kindness. It will also help you improve your English listening and vocabulary through simple conversations and real-life emotions. As you listen, try to imagine every scene, every expression, and every feeling. This is the story of a single mother who lost almost everything. My name is Claire. I am 33 years old, and I am the proud mother of three wonderful daughters. Their names are Sophie, Mia, and Lily. They are the greatest gift life has ever given me. Every morning when I see their smiling faces, I remember why I must keep moving forward, no matter how difficult life becomes. Being a mother is not easy, especially when you have to do everything alone. When I was 16 years old, my mother became very sick. She fought her illness for almost 2 years, but in the end, she could not survive. Losing her was the hardest moment of my childhood. She was my best friend. She taught me how to stay kind even when people were unkind. She always believed that love could heal almost anything. After she died, life changed overnight. My father had already left us years before, so there was no one else to care for me. I learned very early that life would never hand me anything for free. If I wanted something, I had to work for it. Years later, I met a man named Ryan. At first, he seemed kind and caring. He made me laugh. He promised me that we would build a beautiful future together. I believed every word he said. We married after only 1 year of dating. Soon, our first daughter, Sophie, was born. 2 years later, Mia came into our lives. Then, our youngest daughter, Lily, completed our little family. For a short time, I truly believed I had found happiness. But people sometimes hide who they really are. Ryan slowly began changing. He stayed out late, he spent money we did not have. Sometimes he disappeared for days without telling me where he was. Whenever I asked questions, he became angry. "I work hard," he always said. "Stop asking so many questions." I wanted to believe him. I wanted our family to stay together. Then one morning, when Lily was only 6 months old, I woke up and found his side of the bed empty. His clothes were gone. His suitcase was gone. His phone number no longer worked. He never came back. He never called to ask about the girls. He never sent money. It was as if we had never existed. I cried for weeks, but eventually my tears stopped. I realized that crying would not feed my daughters. So I stood up. I promised myself that I would never let my girls feel unloved. We moved into a tiny apartment in a quiet town called Maplewood. The apartment had only 2 small bedrooms. The walls were old, and during winter, cold air came through the windows. Sometimes I covered the windows with blankets to keep the room warm. It was not much, but it was our home. Every month felt like climbing a mountain. Rent, electricity, water, school supplies, food. Every dollar mattered. I had never gone to college. Without a degree, finding a good job was almost impossible. After weeks of searching, I started cleaning houses and small offices. I worked alone. I had no company, no uniform, no paid vacation, no health insurance, only a bucket, a mop, some cleaning sprays, and my determination. Every evening I searched online and read notices on community boards looking for people who needed cleaners. Sometimes I cleaned beautiful homes with swimming pools and expensive furniture. Other days I cleaned dirty garages or old apartments that smelled of smoke. Every job was different. Some customers thanked me warmly, Some offered me coffee. Some even gave me homemade cookies to take home for my daughters. Others barely looked at me. A few complained about things that were already broken before I arrived. Once, a customer refused to pay after I spent 8 hours cleaning his entire house. He said, "I changed my mind. The work wasn't good enough." I knew it was a lie, but I also knew I could not afford a lawyer. So I quietly packed my supplies and walked away. That night, I cried in the bathroom where my daughters could not hear me. The next morning, I smiled again because mothers do not have the luxury of giving up. Every night after the girls fell asleep, I sat beside their beds. Sophie is 10 years old now. She loved reading books about animals. She dreamed of becoming a veterinarian one day. Mia is 8. She loved drawing colorful pictures of flowers and butterflies. Every wall in our apartment seemed to have one of her little drawings taped to it. Little Lily is only 5. She laughed more than anyone I had ever met. She believed every problem could be solved with a hug. Looking at them always gave me strength. Sometimes I gently kissed each forehead and whispered, "I promise I will give you a better life." One Saturday afternoon, Sophie walked into the kitchen while I was counting the little money I had left. "Mama?" she said. "Yes, sweetheart," I replied. "Our school is taking a trip to the Science Museum next month," she said. "That sounds wonderful," I replied. She smiled for only a second before looking down. "It costs $30, she whispered. I looked at the few bills lying on the table. I had only enough money for groceries until the end of the week. "Do you have to go?" I asked quietly. "No," she answered quickly, forcing a smile. "It's okay." She turned around before I could see the tears in her eyes. That evening, I accepted another cleaning job, even though I had already worked 6 days that week. I wanted Sophie to go on that trip. The following Friday, I finally earned enough money. When I handed her the $30, her eyes became wide. "Really?" she said. "Of course," I replied. She hugged me tightly. "You always make everything better, Mama," she said. She did not know that I had skipped several meals that week so she could have that money, and I never planned to tell her. Winter arrived earlier than usual that year. The mornings became colder, snow covered the streets, the wind felt sharp against our faces. Still, I continued working every day. One evening, I received a call from an elderly woman who needed her house cleaned before her family arrived for Christmas. "It will take several hours," she warned. "I'll be there," I replied, without hesitation. The job lasted until after sunset. The woman thanked me warmly and paid me a little extra. "You remind me of my daughter," she said. "Keep believing in yourself." Her kind words stayed with me as I packed my supplies. Outside, heavy rain had begun to fall. The sidewalks were wet and slippery. I wrapped my old coat tightly around myself before taking my daughter's hands. Sophie held my left hand. Mia walked beside me. Little Lily rested her tiny hand inside mine. "Mama," Lily whispered as the cold wind blew across the street, "I'm freezing." I smiled softly, removed my scarf, and wrapped it around her small shoulders. "We're almost home, sweetheart." The streets were unusually quiet. Most people had already gone inside because of the terrible weather. Streetlights reflected on the wet road like long golden ribbons. I held my daughters a little closer. For some reason, I suddenly felt nervous. I looked both ways before stepping toward the crosswalk. A strong wind pushed against us. Then a pair of bright headlights appeared out of nowhere. A loud horn shattered the silence. Someone screamed. The tires slid across the icy road. I turned toward my daughters just as everything around us exploded into noise. The sound of crashing metal echoed through the street. I did not even have time to think. My only instinct was to protect my daughters. I pushed Sophie, Mia, and Lily as hard as I could toward the sidewalk. Then a terrible pain shot through my body. Everything around me disappeared into darkness. I did not know how much time had passed. Slowly, I heard soft beeping sounds. Someone was speaking nearby. The air smelled like medicine. My eyes felt heavy. When I finally opened them, I saw a bright white ceiling. I blinked several times, trying to understand where I was. My head hurts. My arms felt weak. My left leg felt like it was on fire. Then the memory returned. The rain, the headlights, my daughters. I tried to sit up. Pain rushed through my body. No. My voice was barely louder than a whisper. My girls. A nurse quickly walked into the room. She looked to be in her 40s with gentle eyes and a calm smile. Please don't move, she said softly. You're safe. My daughters, I whispered again. Where are Sophie, Mia, and Lily? The nurse smiled. They're safe too. Tears immediately filled my eyes. I need to see them, I said. You will, she replied. Only a few minutes later, the hospital room door opened. 3 little girls rushed inside. Mama, they said. Sophie reached me first. She wrapped her arms around me as carefully as she could. Mia hugged my shoulder. Little Lily climbed onto the side of the bed and buried her face against my chest. I started crying, not because of the pain, not because of the accident. I cried because they were alive. I was so scared. I thought you lost me. I kissed each of them again and again. I'm here. I'll always be here, I said. The girl stayed beside me until a doctor entered the room. He was a tall man with gray hair and kind eyes. He looked at my chart before pulling up a chair. Mrs. Bennett, he said. We've completed all of your tests. I nodded nervously. You suffered several injuries. You have a broken leg, 2 broken ribs, and a serious concussion. I closed my eyes. Will I recover? I asked. Yes, he replied, but it will take time. Your leg requires surgery. You won't be able to work for several months. Those words hurt more than the broken bones. I can't stop working. My daughters need me. I have rent. I have bills. I clean houses. If I don't work... My voice broke. The doctor looked genuinely sorry. Right now, your job is to heal, he said. But, I started to speak. There are no buts, he interrupted. If you return to work too early, you may never recover properly. After he left, I stared at the ceiling. My heart felt heavier than ever. How would we survive? Then another painful thought entered my mind. My cleaning supplies. The accident, the bucket, the vacuum cleaner, everything I had borrowed from my friend Olivia, they had all been destroyed. I felt sick. As if that were not enough, a police officer arrived later that afternoon. He politely removed his hat before speaking. There is something we need to discuss. I looked at him nervously. The vehicle lost control because of the icy road. It wasn't your fault. I felt relieved for a second. However, my stomach tightened. The vehicle hit the sidewalk and part of a decorative stone wall collapsed. It belonged to a luxury jewelry store. The owner is requesting compensation, approximately $20,000. I stared at him. I don't even have $200, I said. He sighed. I understand. We're still investigating, but I wanted you to know. The room suddenly felt smaller. After he left, I covered my face with both hands. Everything I had worked for was falling apart. Sophie gently rubbed my shoulder. Mama, we'll be okay, she said. I looked at my oldest daughter. She was only 10 years old, yet she was trying to comfort me. That broke my heart even more. Over the next several days, friends from the neighborhood helped watch the girls while I stayed in the hospital. One neighbor brought homemade soup. Another brought warm blankets. An elderly couple left bags of groceries outside our apartment. People I barely knew were helping us. It reminded me that kindness still existed. One afternoon, a young reporter visited my hospital room. She asked if she could tell my story. At first, I refused. I don't want pity. She smiled kindly and said, It isn't about pity. It's about hope.
After thinking for a while, I agreed. The article appeared online the next morning. It included a photo of me holding my daughter's hands before the accident, taken months earlier at a local park. The headline read, "A single mother risks her life to save 3 daughters." Within hours, thousands of people had shared the story. Comments poured in from every part of the country. Many people wrote messages of encouragement. Some prayed for us. Others cried after reading what had happened. Then something unbelievable began. Small donations started arriving. $5, $10, $20, $100. People wrote little notes with every donation. "Stay strong. Your daughters are lucky to have you. A mother's love deserves a miracle." I read every message. Each one made me cry. A week later, the total had grown larger than I can imagine. It was enough to cover several months of rent. For the first time since the accident, I breathed a little easier. Then, on a quiet Tuesday morning, my phone rang. The number was unfamiliar. "Hello?" A calm male voice answered. "Good morning. Is this Claire Bennett?" "Yes," I replied. "My name isn't important right now. I read your story." I became nervous. "Who is this?" I asked. "I'd like to help," he replied. "We've already received donations," I said carefully. "I know, but I want to do more," he said. "Why?" I asked. There was a short silence. Then he answered quietly. "Because years ago, someone helped my mother when we had nothing. I've never forgotten that. I believe it's my turn now." I didn't know what to say. "I don't expect anything in return," he continued. "I'll visit you in a few days." Before I could ask another question, the call ended. I stared at the phone. Who was he? Could I trust him? Maybe it was a joke. Maybe someone wanted attention. I decided not to think too much about it. 2 days later, the hospital door opened again. This time, several people entered carrying flowers, balloons, books for the girls, and bags filled with warm winter clothes. Behind them walked a young man in a navy blue coat. He looked to be around 30 years old. His smile was calm and sincere. His eyes were warm. He walked toward my bed and held out his hand. "Hello, Claire. My name is Mark Hayes." "So it was you," I said. He nodded. I promised I'd come. I shook his hand. His handshake was gentle, not forced, not proud, just kind. My daughters watched him curiously. Mark smiled at them. "You must be Sophie. You look just like your mother."
Sophie smiled shyly. "And you must be Mia? I heard you love drawing." Mia's eyes became wide. "How did you know?" she asked. "I read the article. It mentioned your beautiful pictures." Finally, he knelt beside little Lily. "And I believe you're the little girl who gives the best hugs." Without saying a word, Lily wrapped her tiny arms around his neck. Everyone in the room laughed. Mark laughed too. In that moment, something inside me changed. For the first time since the accident, I felt that maybe, just maybe, our darkest days were finally coming to an end. Mark smiled as Lily climbed back into my lap. "You have a beautiful family," he said. I looked at my daughters and smiled. "They're the reason I never gave up." He nodded. "I can see that," he replied. For a few moments, nobody spoke. The room was peaceful. Then Mark pulled a folder from his bag and placed it on the small table beside my bed. "I've talked to the hospital," he said. "They agreed to let me help." I looked at him confused. "What do you mean?" I asked. He smiled. "Your medical bills have been paid." I stared at him. I'm sorry, what did you say?" I asked in a shock. "You heard me. You owe the hospital nothing," he replied. My mouth fell open. I could not believe it. "No, there must be some mistake," I said. "There isn't. I wanted to help," he replied. Tears rolled down my cheeks. I tried to speak, but no words came out. Finally, I whispered, "Thank you." He gently shook his head. "You don't have to thank me," he said. "Why are you doing this?" I asked.
He looked out the window for a moment before answering. When I was 12 years old, my father died. My mother raised me alone. We were poor. Some days we didn't have enough food. I listened carefully. One winter, a stranger paid our rent. We never learned his name. My mother cried the entire night. She told me something I never forgot. I waited quietly. She said, "When life becomes kind to you, become kind to someone else." He smiled. I've been trying to do that ever since. His words stayed in my heart. A week later, I had surgery. The operation went well, but recovery was slow. Learning to walk again was painful. Some days I wanted to quit. Every step felt impossible. But every afternoon, my daughters visited me. "Mama," Lily said one day, "you're getting stronger." "I am?" I asked. She nodded proudly. "You walked 5 steps today." I laughed. "I guess I did," I replied. "You'll walk 100 soon," she said. Her confidence made me believe in myself. After another 3 weeks, I was finally allowed to leave the hospital. I expected Mark to drive us back to our small apartment. Instead, he took a different road. I looked out the window. "This isn't the way home," I said. "I know," he replied with a smile. "There's somewhere I'd like to show you." 20 minutes later, the car stopped in front of a quiet neighborhood filled with trees. Children were riding bicycles, neighbors waved to one another. Everything looked peaceful. Mark parked in front of a beautiful little house with white walls, blue shutters, and a small garden full of colorful flowers. I looked at him. "It's beautiful," I said. "It is," he replied. "But why are we here?" I asked. He handed me a small key. I frowned. "I don't understand," I said. He smiled. "Go ahead," he replied. My hands trembled as I unlocked the front door. Inside was a warm living room with soft sunlight shining through the windows. There was a comfortable sofa, a bookshelf, a dining table, 3 small bedrooms upstairs. One room was painted light blue, another soft yellow. The smallest room had pink curtains. Lily ran upstairs. "Mama, come look," she said. I slowly followed her with my walking cane. The room had a little bed, a teddy bear, a bookshelf filled with children's stories. My eyes filled with tears. I turned toward Mark. "Whose house is this?" I asked. He smiled. "Yours." I froze. "What?" I asked surprisedly. "This house belongs to you now," he said. I shook my head. "No, I can't accept something like this," I replied. "You can. You deserve a safe place to raise your daughters," he said. I covered my mouth. "I have nothing to give you," I said. "You already have," he replied. I looked confused. "You reminded thousands of people that kindness still matters. I simply helped make it possible," he said. I fell to my knees, despite the pain in my leg. I cried harder than I had ever cried before. Sophie wrapped her arms around me. Mia cried beside us. Little Lily laughed and cried at the same time. "We have a home," she whispered. "Yes," I answered through my tears. "We finally have a home." Life slowly became peaceful. Every morning, the girls walked to their new school together. They made new friends. They laughed more. At night, we ate dinner around a real dining table instead of balancing plates on our laps. For the first time in years, our house felt full of hope. One afternoon, Mark came to visit. We drank tea in the kitchen while the girls played outside. "So," he asked, "if money wasn't a problem, what would you really like to do?" I smiled sadly. "I've always loved baking. My mother taught me."
When I was little, she made fresh bread every Sunday morning. The smell filled the whole house. I've dreamed about opening a bakery ever since. "So why didn't you?" he asked. "I couldn't afford it," I replied. Baking equipment is expensive. Renting a shop is expensive. Everything is expensive. Mark leaned back in his chair. What if those problems disappeared? I laughed. Then I'd probably be the happiest woman in town. He smiled. Good, because we're going shopping tomorrow. The next morning, he introduced me to several local business owners. One helped us find a small shop on a quiet corner. Another sold ovens and baking equipment at a huge discount after hearing my story. Several volunteers painted the walls, neighbors donated tables, chairs, and decorations. Even Mia painted a colorful sign that read, Claire's Family Bakery. When everything was ready, I stood outside the shop holding a pair of scissors. A small crowd had gathered. My daughters stood beside me. Mark smiled from the front row. Ready? He asked. I nodded. Together, my daughters and I cut the ribbon. Everyone clapped. That first morning, I baked fresh bread, cinnamon rolls, apple pies, chocolate cookies, and warm croissants. The wonderful smell drifted through the neighborhood. People began walking inside almost immediately. I'll take 2 loaves of bread. Can I have 6 cookies? Those pies look amazing. By lunchtime, almost every shelf was empty. I could hardly believe it. Business continued growing every week. Customers returned again and again. Some came for the bread. Others came because they wanted to support our family. Many simply came because they said my bakery felt warm and welcoming. Months passed, then years. The bakery became one of the most popular places in Maplewood. I hired 2 employees, then 4. Eventually, I no longer worried about paying bills. Sophie grew into a smart, caring teenager. She never forgot her dream of helping animals. Mia continued drawing. She even designed the bakery's new logo. Little Lily still hugged everyone she met. Some things never changed. One evening, after closing the bakery, I found Mark standing outside. He looked at the sign above the door and smiled. You did this, he said. I laughed. No, we did this. He shook his head. I only opened a door. You were the one who walked through it. His words reminded me of something my own mother used to say. Kindness can open a door, but courage is what allows someone to step inside. I looked around the bakery. Families were laughing together. Children were eating cookies. Fresh bread cooled on the shelves. My daughters were smiling behind the counter. For a moment, I remembered the cold, rainy night when I believed everything was over. If someone had told me then that one day I would own a beautiful home, run my own bakery, and watch my daughters grow up happy, I would never have believed them. Life can change in a single moment, sometimes for the worse, sometimes for the better. The important thing is never to stop believing, never stop trying, never stop hoping. Because even after the darkest night, the sun always rises again. And sometimes a stranger's kindness can become the beginning of a brand new life. Thank you, my dear listener, for spending this time with me. If this story touched your heart, remember this simple lesson. Kindness is never wasted. Even the smallest act of love can completely change someone's future. And no matter how difficult life becomes, never lose hope, because tomorrow may bring the miracle you have been waiting for.